Lesson 3.6, adding and subtracting unlike fractions. So we have already covered adding and subtracting like fractions, and we were told that you had to have a common denominator. Well, with these being unlike, that means that they don't already have a common denominator. You'll have to rewrite the fractions first. And you want to use, like it says, the least common multiple for your common denominator. So here's what I'm going to suggest that you do. The very first problem, 5/6 plus negative 3/10. Well, first of all, we don't deal with double signs. So if the signs are different, that really means that you should write 5/6 minus 3/10. But what I'm going to have you do is look at the two denominators. There's 6 and 10. You take the biggest one, 10, and you ask yourself, does 6 go into 10 evenly? And it doesn't. So then you take 10 times 2, which is 20, and ask yourself, does 6 go into 20 evenly? And it doesn't. So then you go 10 times 3, which is 30, and you ask yourself, does 6 go into 30 evenly? And it does. So 30 would be my common denominator or least common multiple. So you're going to rewrite both of these over 30. And the way that you do this is, first of all, with 5/6, you ask 6 times what gives us 30? Well, it's 6 times 5. So you have to take 5 times 5, making it 25/30ths. Then 10 times 3 is 30. So you've got to do 3 times 3, which is 9. So now I have 25/30ths minus 9/30ths, and we do what we did on Friday, is my denominator is 30. 25 minus 9, when you subtract that, you should get 16, and then you always look to see if you can simplify, and in this case, they're both even, so it would be 8/15. So a lot more work when the denominators are not the same. You have to rewrite them to common denominators, and you can then do the problem like we did on Friday. Yes?
Can't you multiply the bottom two together?
You can, but that's not your least common multiple. That'd make it 60. And then what happens is you deal with larger numbers, and usually when you're dealing with larger numbers, that's when mistakes happen because it's harder to tell how to reduce and things like that. So I wouldn't recommend using the denominator where you multiply both together, because then you're going to be dealing with really big numbers. Sometimes you don't have a choice, that's the only option. But in that one, 30 would be a lot better than 60. Okay, so let's look at 3/4 plus 1/7. We can go through the process, or does anybody know what the common denominator is on that? Tori? Yeah, this is one just like Trayton was asking about. That one, I could go 7, 14, 21, and 28. So there isn't anything till you get to 7 times 4. So you have to write 28 for the denominator on both. Only don't write 24. Okay, Tori, so on the left, 4 times what is 28? 7. So 3 times 7 is... Oh my gosh, what did I do? 3 times 7 is 21. Okay. 7 times what is 4? So 1 times 4. So 21 over 28 plus 4 over 28. What would that be, Tori? 25 over 28. Okay, questions? All right. 9/16. Well, nine 16ths plus negative 5/8. So we've got to change a couple things on this, if I can get it to go down there. or not.
Haley's not there.
Scroll down, Haley. Okay. That'll work. 9/16 plus -5/8. So who wants to try this? There's 2 or 3 things we got to do with this one. Somebody besides Tori, because she just did it. All right, Haley. First thing is this double sign thing right here.
You need to make it a negative.
Okay, so 9/16 minus 5/8. So Haley, what's the biggest denominator?
16.
16. Does 8 go into 16 evenly?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have already gotten to our common denominator, 16, and by doing 16, Haley, what's that first fraction going to stay?
9/16.
9/16. What's 5/8 going to become?
10.
10/16. Okay, so I have 9/16 and I'm subtracting 10/16. What would the result be?
1/16.
Okay, but I've got 9. Yeah, negative 1/16. Okay, now a couple with mixed numbers. 4 2/3 minus 3 6/7. What I would recommend on this one, let's try it this way, just because I want to make sure you know how to do this. 4 2/3 minus 3 6/7. So you can write it vertically when you're subtracting and the first number is bigger. But you look at 2/3 and 6/7, and you look at the common denominator. Well, 7's the biggest denominator. 3 doesn't go into that. If I do 7 times 2, I get 14. 3 doesn't go in that. So my only choice is to go 7 times 3, which would make my denominator 21. Okay, so you know 3 times 7 is 21. So 2 times 7 makes this 14. 7 times 3 is 21, so 6 times 3 is 18. So when I look at this, I'm going to kind of mark that middle section out. I've got 4 and 14 over 21 minus 3 and 18 over 21. I can't take 14 minus 18 when it's attached in a mixed number. So I have to borrow from my 4 and make it a 3. Now, I don't just add a 1 and make it like 114 or 24. What you have to do, the one that you borrow can be any number over itself. But since we're dealing with the denominator of 21, the one that I borrowed is 21 over 21. That means that I'm going to add that to 14 over 21, making it 35. The one that you borrow, you can make it any number over itself. In this case, we made it 21 over 21. So 35 minus 18 would be 17 over 21. Questions about that one? Do you remember the borrowing and how you add the two numbers together or not? No? Let's go look at a problem. Let's go over here to the side. I'm going to change my color to red so that you can see what we're talking about. Let's say we had, let's say 5 and 2/5. And we wanted to subtract something that had more than 2/5. You would borrow from that 5 and make it a 4. What would my 2 become then? 7, because you would add 2 plus 5. The one that we borrowed would be 5/5.
I get it now.
So let's say we had 6 and 3/8, and I wanted to subtract something, and it had more than 3/8 on the on the bottom. So you'd have to borrow from the 6 and make it a 5. What would the 3 become, Sienna? 11. Because the one we borrowed that time would be 8/8. Any one can be any number over itself. It just happens to match whatever your denominator is. So what you do, in effect, is add those two numbers together, the top and bottom, and then that way, that's what it becomes. Let's try one more. 5 1/4 plus 6 1/6. I'm going to write this one vertically. 5 1/4 plus 6 1/6. When I look at my denominator, I look at the biggest one, it's 6. Does 4 go into 6 evenly? No. So take 6 times 2. 12. Does 4 go into 12 evenly? Yeah, so let's make it 12. So 4 times 3 is 12. So 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times 2 is 12. So 1 times 2, 2. So right now it's 5 3/12 plus 6 2/12. So when I add the 12ths together, 3 plus 2 is 5, and 5 plus 6 is 11. And that's already simplified, and it's good to go. 11 5/12. Questions?